There is a strange message many people receive in their 20s. It sounds relaxed, supportive, even liberating. You have time. Nothing is decided yet. Do not worry too much. 30 is the new 20. Try things. Drift a little. The real choices can come later. At first, this message feels comforting. It takes the pressure off. It makes uncertainty feel normal. It gives a person permission to postpone. But in the defining decade, psychologist Meg Jay argues that this comforting message carries a hidden cost. It can cause people to misread one of the most formative periods of adult life as though it were only a waiting room. Her argument is not that your 20s must be perfect. It is not that you need a flawless plan, an ideal partner, a dream career, and complete self-knowledge by some impossible deadline. Her argument is much more grounded and much more useful. It is that your 20s matter. They matter in ways that are often invisible while you are living them. The jobs you take, the habits you repeat, the relationships you enter, the people you meet, the risks you avoid, the opportunities you postpone, the skills you build or fail to build, all of these begin shaping the decades that follow. This book is not a lecture about success in the narrow sense. It is a serious, humane, and psychologically informed invitation to wake up to the fact that life is already happening. In this narration, we will walk through the major ideas of the defining decade and explore why its message continues to resonate so strongly. We will look at how Meg Jay challenges cultural myths about the 20s, why she believes identity is built through action, what she means by identity capital, why work and love deserve more attention during this decade than many people assume, and how time, in quiet ways, keeps moving whether we use it intentionally or not. This is not a book about panic. It is a book about participation. It is about understanding that your future does not suddenly begin later. It is being shaped now. At the center of the defining decade is a direct challenge to a cultural story. That story says the 20s are a kind of extended adolescence, a soft launch into adulthood, a period too unstable to count for much. Meg Jay argues that this is one of the most misleading ideas of modern adult life. She does not deny that the 20s are often uncertain. In fact, she treats uncertainty as part of what makes the decade important. It is precisely because so much is still flexible that the choices made during these years matter so much. A decade does not become unimportant because it is unfinished. It becomes powerful because it is formative. Jay's insight is that people often confuse not knowing everything with nothing mattering yet. Those are not the same thing. The 20s are not empty space before life starts. They are the years in which identity, work patterns, relationship expectations, confidence, and long-term direction often begin taking shape. Sometimes this shaping happens through obvious decisions. Sometimes it happens through delay, drift, or repetition. But shaping is happening either way. One of the reasons this claim lands so forcefully is that it corrects a common emotional habit. Many people in their 20s suit themselves by saying they can always begin later. Later they will get serious. Later they will build a career. Later they will become intentional in love. Later they will stop wandering. Later they will save money, settle down, take health seriously, and become the person they imagine. Jay does not say later is impossible, but she does say later is not neutral. Every year spent postponing is still a year spent becoming someone. Habits deepen. Social circles solidify. Opportunities open and close. Confidence is either built through effort or weakened by avoidance. Her point is not that every mistake is fatal. It is that delay itself has a shape and a cost. In this sense, the book is both practical and philosophical. It asks a fundamental question. What happens when a generation is told not to take seriously the very decade in which adult life begins to gather momentum? Jay's answer is clear. People lose time, but even more importantly, they lose the chance to engage with their own lives while those lives are still especially open to direction. One of the book's strengths is that it understands why the myth of the carefree 20s is so appealing. It offers relief. It makes uncertainty feel less frightening. It turns confusion into something fashionable, even expected. It suggests that a person can float for a while without consequence. But Jay shows how this cultural comfort can become a personal trap. If you believe your 20s do not count yet, then underinvestment in your own life starts to feel harmless. A weak job seems acceptable because it is only temporary. A vague relationship seems fine because seriousness can wait. Social patterns are left unexamined because maturity is assumed to arrive automatically with age. But age alone does not create substance. Time passes, but growth depends on what is done within that time. The comfort of postponement can quietly turn into accumulated regret. By the time some people feel ready to become intentional, they discover they are not starting from zero. They are starting from years of habits, gaps, missed chances, and self-doubt. Jay is careful not to shame readers for this. Her tone is direct but compassionate. She understands why people drift. The modern world offers many reasons. Economic instability, too many options, social comparison, fear of choosing wrongly, and the pressure to appear effortlessly free can all make commitment feel risky. But she insists that avoiding commitment is risky too. Choosing nothing is not the same as preserving every option forever. It is often the slow construction of a life by default. This idea gives the book its urgency. The danger is not only making a bad choice. The danger is letting choices happen around you while you call it waiting. One of Meg Jay's most important concepts is identity capital. This phrase gives language to something many people sense, but struggle to define. Identity capital is the collection of personal assets you build through experience. It includes skills, discipline, reputation, relationships, credentials, achievements, and meaningful encounters that increase your capacity to shape your future. In simple terms, identity capital is what you gather in your 20s and beyond that makes your next move stronger than your last. The reason this idea matters is that it distinguishes movement from progress. A person can be busy without building anything durable. They can have experiences without gaining traction. They can say yes to novelty after novelty while quietly remaining underdeveloped. Jay wants readers to ask a harder question. Is what I am doing now adding substance to my life? Is it making me more capable, more credible, more resilient, more self-aware, more connected, more employable, more grounded? Identity capital often grows in unglamorous ways. It may come from a demanding first job, from learning how to show up reliably, from gaining competence in a field, from finishing something difficult, from earning trust, from meeting people outside your familiar circle, or from discovering through action what kind of work and life fit you best. This concept is powerful because it reframes early adulthood. Instead of asking only what feels exciting right now, it asks what compounds. What will still matter later because I did it now? Jay does not argue that every move must be strategic in a cold or calculating way. Rather, she argues that adult life is easier to build when you stop treating your experiences as disposable. Identity capital is what transforms the future from a fantasy into something with practical foundations. It also helps explain why two people of the same age can appear similar from the outside while standing in very different positions internally. One may have spent years building competence, self-trust, and momentum. Another may have spent years delaying, hoping clarity would arrive without investment. The difference is not only age. It is accumulated substance. That is what identity capital names. When the book turns to work, it offers one of its most useful correctives. Many people enter adulthood hoping to discover a perfect calling before they fully commit to anything. They want clarity first and action second. Jay suggests that this sequence is often unrealistic. In many cases, career direction emerges through action. A job may not reveal your forever path, but it can still matter immensely if it teaches you something, stretches your skills, and adds identity capital. This means early work is not just about making money or passing time. It is often where adult confidence begins to take real form. Jay pushes back against the idea that a first serious job has to be magical to be worthwhile. What matters is whether it helps you become someone more capable. Do you learn discipline? Can you handle responsibility? Are you developing expertise? Are you proving something to yourself and others? Are you building a network? Are you moving closer to understanding where you fit? Too many people, she suggests, undervalue this phase because they are waiting for work to feel immediately expressive, meaningful, or ideal. In the meantime, they may remain under-challenged and underinvested. The deeper message here is not to settle for misery. It is to stop confusing perfection with progress. Careers rarely emerge fully formed. They are built through experiments that have weight, through commitments that teach, through real tasks that generate confidence. Jay also warns against the passive language people sometimes use about career life. They say they are figuring things out, but sometimes that means they are postponing effort while hoping insight will arrive on its own. The truth is that self-knowledge often grows through friction. You discover strengths by being tested. You discover preferences by working in real conditions. You discover direction by moving, not by hovering indefinitely at the edge of commitment. This is one of the most empowering ideas in the book. You do not need complete certainty in order to begin building a serious work life. In fact, beginning is often how certainty starts to take shape. Another major idea in the defining decade is the importance of weak ties. These are the people who are not your closest friends or most intimate family members, but who still have the potential to influence your life. They may be acquaintances, mentors, former coworkers, professors, distant friends, or people you know only lightly through shared settings. Jay explains that these weaker social connections are often the source of new opportunities. Close friends tend to know what you already know. They often live inside the same informational world. Weak ties, by contrast, connect you to other worlds. They can introduce you to jobs, ideas, environments, and possibilities that would never appear if you stayed only within your comfort zone. This matters because many 20-somethings keep life socially narrow during the very years when expansion matters most. They remain in circles that feel familiar, supportive, and low risk. But growth often requires venturing outward, tolerating discomfort, and becoming visible beyond the small group of people who already know you. The lesson here is practical and psychological at the same time. On the practical side, your next important opportunity may come from someone you hardly considered central to your life. On the psychological side, building a broader adult world requires courage. It requires leaving behind the belief that your life will be built only through existing connections or private introspection. You have to enter rooms. You have to ask questions. You have to let yourself be seen by people who do not already have a fixed story about who you are. Weak ties matter because adult identity is not built in isolation. It is built through contact with larger networks of possibility. The book's treatment of love is one of its most memorable and often most confronting sections. Jay argues that relationships in your 20s are not somehow exempt from long-term significance. Even if they feel casual, temporary, or exploratory, they are still shaping you. They are teaching you how you attach, how you communicate, how you handle conflict, what standards you accept, what patterns you repeat, and what kinds of people you keep choosing. In other words, your romantic life is not just happening. It is training you. This is a powerful way of seeing relationships because it removes the illusion that commitment can be postponed without preparation. Jay does not tell readers to rush into marriage or treat every date as destiny. Her point is subtler and wiser. The experiences you accumulate in love become part of who you are. If you spend years in unstable, avoidant, or low-commitment dynamics, you are not simply marking time until a serious relationship magically appears. You may be strengthening habits that make real intimacy harder later. You may be normalizing inconsistency, emotional distance, or indecision. Likewise, if you learn to communicate honestly, choose thoughtfully, and build with care, you are creating a healthier foundation for future partnership. Jay also challenges the fantasy that relationship decisions can be cleanly deferred to a later stage of life. She reminds readers that serious partnership is not only about eventually choosing someone. It is also about becoming someone capable of choosing well and relating well. That process begins long before a final commitment. This section of the book resonates because it treats love with both realism and respect. It does not romanticize the 20s, but it does not trivialize them either. It says, in effect, do not underestimate the power of repetition in your emotional life. Notice what your relationships are teaching you. Notice what they are reinforcing. Notice whether you are moving toward greater honesty, steadiness, and depth, or merely cycling through familiarity and postponement. Your future love life is not separate from your present one. It is being prepared by it. A quiet but powerful force runs through the entire book, and that force is time. Jay repeatedly returns to the idea that life gathers momentum in ways people often fail to appreciate while they are young. A year can feel short in your 20s. 2 or 3 years can disappear into a blur of jobs, moves, friendships, and uncertain plans. Because the future still appears large, it is easy to believe nothing is closing yet. But Jay argues that delay is not neutral. When you postpone effort in work, relationships, health, or self-development, you are not freezing your life in place. You are living through years that will still become part of the structure of your adulthood. Habits formed in delay are still habits. Confidence weakened by avoidance is still a real psychological development. Missed opportunities do not always return in the same form. Social circles change. Energy changes. Circumstances change. Time changes the context in which later decisions must be made. This is why the book feels urgent without becoming hysterical. It does not say that 25 is late or that 30 is a deadline of doom. It says something more realistic. The longer people wait to engage seriously with their own lives, the more constrained later choices can become. There is a cumulative effect to underinvestment. One of the book's most valuable emotional corrections is that beginning matters more than perfect timing. The right moment is often less important than the willingness to stop assuming there will always be another easier one. If the book only delivered hard truths, it would be much less helpful. Part of what makes Meg Jay persuasive is that she understands the emotional landscape of the 20s. She knows many people are not drifting because they are lazy or careless. They're drifting because they are overwhelmed, afraid of narrowing their options, unsure of what they want, and frightened of making a choice that turns out to be wrong. In a world full of visible alternatives, every decision can feel like a loss. Commit to one path and you close off others. Choose one city, one person, one job, one identity, and suddenly the fantasy of infinite possibility becomes smaller. Jay understands this fear, but she argues that endless avoidance is not freedom. It is often paralysis disguised as openness. One of the deepest insights in the book is that confidence tends to follow commitment, not precede it. Many people believe they must feel certain before they act. In reality, they often feel more certain only after action teaches them something. This reverses a common assumption. You do not wait for total clarity and then move. You move, and clarity grows through contact with real life. That does not mean every choice must be final or dramatic. It means seriousness itself can be developmental. Taking a job seriously, a relationship seriously, a skill seriously, a goal seriously, can help build the very identity and confidence people think they need first. In this sense, the book offers a hopeful message to anxious readers. You do not need omniscience. You need motion with meaning. You need decisions that teach. You need experiments that build, not just distract. The fear of choosing wrong becomes less tyrannical when you realize that thoughtful action is often how people discover what is right. It is important to understand what the defining decade is not saying. It is not saying you must have everything figured out by 25. It is not saying there is one correct timeline for adulthood. It is not saying uncertainty is failure or that exploration is immature. It is not saying you should panic if your life does not resemble someone else's. And it is not saying a delayed start makes later growth impossible. These distinctions matter because some readers hear urgency and translate it into perfectionism. That is not Jay's message. Her argument is not for fear. It is for engagement. She wants people to stop treating their lives as if they are still on hold. She wants them to see that meaningful experiments, real commitments, and conscious choices are different from passive drift. The book is not hostile to flexibility. It is hostile to the fantasy that flexibility alone will build a future. It asks readers to bring effort, intention, and seriousness to a decade that culture often encourages them to blur. In that sense, the book is not demanding premature certainty. It is asking for mature participation. Although the defining decade was written in an earlier moment, its message may feel even more relevant now. Modern life gives young adults more options, more online comparison, more information, and more reasons to feel uncertain than ever. Social media creates the illusion that everyone else is advancing faster. Gig work and digital careers make paths less linear. Dating culture can make commitment feel both more available and more fragile. It is easy to spend years curating possibilities without building much structure. That is exactly why Jay's ideas still matter. A modern application of the book might look like this. Stop measuring your life only by mood or aesthetics and start measuring it by accumulated substance. Ask whether your current work is building useful skills. Ask whether your routines are making you more capable or more fragmented. Ask whether your relationships are reinforcing patterns you actually want. Expand your circle beyond the people who already reflect your current identity. Stop waiting to feel fully ready before taking steps that could help you become ready. Think less about finding an instantly perfect path and more about building identity capital in a way that compounds. The details of adulthood change across generations, but the core reality does not. Lives are built through time, attention, and repeated action. The people who understand this early are not always the ones with the most certainty. They are often the ones willing to invest meaningfully before certainty arrives. If we gather the book's lessons into a final set of takeaways, they might sound like this. Your 20s matter more than culture often admits. Identity is built through action, not passive waiting. Work should be approached as a place where competence and direction are formed, even before a perfect calling appears. Weak ties can transform your opportunities, so your adult world must grow beyond familiar circles. Love in your 20s is not trivial rehearsal. It is part of how your emotional future is shaped. Delay has a cost because time is never standing still. And perhaps most importantly, confidence often follows commitment. The defining decade remains powerful because it speaks to a very modern problem, the temptation to confuse openness with postponement and freedom with drift. Meg Jay offers a better vision. A good life does not arrive all at once, and it does not wait patiently in the distance while you decide whether to begin. It is built in small, serious ways. Through effort. Through choices. Through relationships. Through the courage to step into adulthood before you feel completely prepared. In the end, the book does not ask for perfection. It asks for presence. It asks you to understand that your life is already underway, and that the more honestly you meet that fact, the more strength, direction, and meaning your future can hold.